How you going there? So I've got this hammer head that somebody's asked me to make a new handle for it. It's special to them. It was their father's that he made as a blacksmith apprentice, probably 70 odd years ago. So I've got another old hammer here that was actually my father's, and I'm going to sort of model the new handle on that style. So I've got a nice piece of timber here. This is Jarrah, and I've just marked just the shoulders and the taper area on the material, and I'm using a yellow pencil because it's a bit lighter, and then just transfer those lines across. It's just rough at this stage, and then I'm going to cut all these out. You can see here that I've just sort of drawn the shape in, just something as a guide, and then so it's got widest in the middle, and then so when you hold it like that, it's going to be comfortable, and then the same will be the other way. So I'll round it up. It'll be slightly scaled down to this one, but we'll do that. So you see I've cut the first one off here on my bandsaw, but I broke the blade, so now we're going to do it by hand. So the next part, I'm going to put it in the vise. I'm going to cut that, so I'll just set that up and we'll start again. Okay, we're back again. So I've got this just 10-point handsaw, and we're just going to what I've done here is I've actually cut it with just sort of using the saw and just round out, rather than try and sort of get two saws in. I'll just take it off because there's a lot of shaping to be done before we get this right. And so I've got that part of it out. Now just turn it around, do the other two sides. Again. Because when you fit a traditional head to a handle, you need to start off with the right size. Most of the shaping is done by hand, so we'll just take this out with the saw. I'll just mark that with the we've got our mark there, so that'll just get shaped out to there, probably with a type of file or a rasp. And do that. Okay, so now we've got something to work with. You can see here that got a little bit of material to move, but we'll take that off with the rasp and maybe a little bit of chiseling and get that down. Alright, so I'll set that up and then we'll keep going. So you can see here I've got a big old rasp that I'm going to use to take off a bit of the meat, and then I've got a smaller half round rasp, so I'll just do the little bit in there. I'll take a bit off, rips it off pretty quick. You can make a bit of a round with a flat tool. Just do it in a tapered way, and then we'll finish it off. You can see there's my line for where the shoulder is going to be. Now I'm just going to check it. Okay, so now I've got it down to the thickness of the outside. So what I'm going to do is flip it over, and we'll take a bit more off this side. So just put it on an angle. Check it. Okay, so we're getting closer now. So just make sure it's alright, almost there on that side there. So now we'll have to do the width of it as well. So I'll take a little bit more off that and then tidy up the radius there. Alright, good. See that? So that'll go on. Remember that a hammerhead has to wedge onto the handle, and then this is cut and wedged, so then it can't come back up because that's wider than that part there. Now, we'll start with the big boy. Check it for height. And we've got a little bit to go. Okay, just check it again. So now we're at the outside width, so I'll do the next one and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so now when we look at it, you can see I've got this shoulder working around there and the slope on both sides going up. A little bit of work on that side to be done. So now I'll just continue to get that as uniform as possible. It almost fits in both ways, so it fits in there, a little bit thicker on that side. This is probably a little bit irregular, and then just a little bit more off there. So I'll work on that and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so now you can see that I've actually managed to get it on like that, and that's going to make a mark there, so we know where to remove the material. But we also have to make sure that we line the hammer up, the face of it. We can sort of, there's a slight twist in that at the moment, but that'll come out when we round up the handle. But we have to make sure that we do that. So the important thing now is I've decided which way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to put a mark here, and that tells me that the head is facing in that direction. So every time I fit it, I'm going to be fitting it the same way, so I'm not removing material in the wrong side. So you can see I've got it on a little bit further now. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to put a mark that tells me how far I've come down, so I can continue to get that right, and then just tap the hammer off. Okay, so not very far, but you can see here just I need to take some off these two edges. Seems like I've got the thickness quite good there, So we'll just keep moving that down until we get that nice and good. Now when you put a hammer head on a handle, you don't hit the head down with the hammer like that. You just hit the bench or on the ground, and then the momentum takes it down. Every time you hit it, it goes down a little bit further. So that's how we do it. So got another mark. Just mark it all the way around again, so they're lining up, so that's all good. But to get it off, we just little taps. Okay, and you can see I've got it down a little bit further there, and there's a little bit of a bruise there. So obviously a little bit off this face here, and then that'll start, and a little bit off that face. There's a bit of a bruise there as well. So that's what we're looking to do, is just use the size of the opening to create the mark where we're doing it. Another way of putting it on, match up the marks again, like that, is just drive it like that. That also makes the head go down. Or like that. Either way, this one works very good because of the shock of the blow. And again, you can just see here, I'll bring it up close. So we just got a little bit of curling of the timber there, so it's just tight there. And you can see I've got a little bit of tightness there and a bit on that corner there. So I'm just starting to get that right. It's nice and square with the head, so that's good. So we'll just take that off, and then we'll go a bit further, and we've only got that much to go, so about 12 or 13 millimeters, or a bit over half an inch, and then we can then start to shape the handle. Now we've got a nice little Jarrah handle on our handmade hammerhead. As you can see, I've got the timber almost through the head now. I like to have the timber about 5 millimeters through, so when I put the wedges in, glue them in, and hammer it down and paint it over, so I get a nice finish. You can see here that there is just a little bit of curling of the timber there, and it's probably a little bit more pronounced there. So that tells me that I need to just start to adjust that. I can do that with the chisel. It's fairly even, so I'm happy with the way it's been coming down, so it means that the head of the hammer is square to the axis of the handle. So I'll just take that off now and continue that last little bit. And once we pop that through, then we can start shaping out the handle. You can see here I'm going to use the chisel just on this last part, and just to take that down. I'm just giving off tiny little shavings. You can sort of just do it like this too. Depends on how hard the material is. The principal reason for using the chisel now is to give me a good finish with the grain, rather than have the raspy scratches. So that's the reason. I'm almost there now. almost there now, so we'll just do the last side and then we'll check it. So you can see I've got the handle and the vise now with the head on. I've squared the line all the way around, and now I'm just chiseling with the back of the chisel back down towards the face, and that's going to create the nice smooth taper out of the neck or the shoulder of the handle. And then I'll do that on each side so that it'll be all nice and even and require no finishing. Okay, so you can see here that we've got the handle sticking above the head. Okay, we've got nice shoulders off the chisel, so it's the grain's finished quite satisfactorily. A little bit of curling there, I'll take that off when I finish up, and we'll start to shape up the handle. We'll probably use a spoke shave, and we'll end up with a nice little hammer, and we'll go from there. Okay, the head's off. We've got our mark here for which way the face of the hammer is pointing. I'm also going to put one down here as well, because I may end up losing that, so I don't want to lose which way I've fitted things. Now you can see here on the end, I've marked here with my pencil just roughly an oval shape. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to gauge those lines down on each of either side of the handle, so I know where I'm going to be taking the material away to create that rough round shape, or oval shape really. There's no real science to this. It's got to feel nice in the hand, and it's got to have a nice shape. But the first thing, we'll just make it fairly parallel, oval, and then we'll put a little bit of a sculpt in it like that to finish it all off. Okay, so we're in the vise, we're ready to go. So I've got two spoke shapes here. I've got one with a flat bottom, and I've got one with a round bottom. Okay, so they can go in and out of the curves. Flat bottom, just like a mini plane really. So we'll just, doesn't matter whether you do it towards you or away from you, either way works well. The hardest part is holding it in the vise. At the moment we're just removing material. It's coming off nicely with the grain that way. And if you hold it on a bit of an angle, you get much more of a slicing action. You don't tear the grain up so much if you happen to be going against it. Okay, just try and keep some symmetry about what you're doing. Okay, and then you can see that round is starting to form now. So just tend to try and be, rather than do one side at once. Oops, knock something down there, blocks of wood. And then just keep checking with your hand. Your hand is the best indicator of, you know, comfort and feel. I have to do the end of the handle the other way. I've got it in the vise here. And see that now I'll end up with a round at that point. And we're just about to lose our proof mark, but it won't matter because we've got another one on the bottom. You can always replace it at any time. Always pays to do that. So now we've got comfortable around there, so we'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll flip it over, we'll do the end there, and then we'll start to just put a little sculpt in there, and before long we'll have a nice handle. So you can see here that I've got a little curve going, and sort of the neck of the top end of it is starting to shape out nicely. You see that curve there? Well, when I match that with the other side, then that'll give it some nice shape, and it's coming off there. Okay, so we'll just continue to shape it. We've got it roughly oval on the bottom there, so we'll just continue to do it by feel and just make sure that it all starts to go good. I think it's got that nice taper in there, so it can't come out of your hand, and yeah, it's looking good. You can see here I've got quite a lot of material on the bench here. Now I've got the shape going, so it's starting to come along quite well. We've got it narrowing in the middle there, or up at the upper end there, and just creating that shape all over. So a little bit more to do on this side now, so I'll turn it over and I'll start to shape out this. It actually already feels pretty nice in the hand, like that, so it's gonna feel pretty good, and I think it'll come up well. There's a nice bit of figure in the timber, so it's gonna look all right when it's all finished. So once we've done with the spoke shaving, we'll get out a scraper and then we'll scrape it, and then hit it with a bit of sandpaper, and we'll be done. Then we'll wedge the ends to hold the head on, and it'll be finished. Whenever you're doing this type of work, you must always work down the grain. So that's from short grain towards long grain. So the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. So you're continually having to turn the tool around to create that slope. Okay, now, so you can see here I've pretty much got the shape down to what I want. It's narrowing there and there. I've got a nice little sort of grip towards the end. And so I've probably done as much as I need to with the spoke shave. So now we're going to start scraping it. So the scraper is an easy way to remove any material and also even things up. So let's put that down for a sec. So this is called a cabinet scraper. Cabinet scraper, you burnish a burr on the edge, on each of the edges, so you've got 4 edges, and it creates a very fine shaving. So I'll show you how it works. So I can just hold it like that and work it around. Again, work with the grain where you can. You can go against the grain with a scraper. What we'll see quickly is an improvement to the overall finish and to the shape, because you can easily take all the little eyes off that are created by the process of using the spoke shave. It creates a series of flats, whereas these are a lot smaller. You can see the shavings of this are like very fine, plain shavings, and so there's one there, so very small, fine. can go against the grain a little, and then when we get to the final cleanup stage, you can just reverse it and go with the grain just to give it that finer finish. And you can do it pretty much in any direction, and it does quickly get the job done. Much better than sandpaper at this stage, and you can hear which way it cuts better. But all of a sudden now we've got a much better shape. A couple of little tears there, and so we've got some tearing grain up here we have to tidy up. But all of a sudden we're much closer. Okay, so I'm just about there. So I'm going to hit it with some sandpaper and see where all the blemishes are, and then do the final tidy up. Just give that a nice little radius around the edge there. Then we'll cut a slot down that way and a slot that way, and we'll put some wedges in there once the head goes on. So I'm going to use a piece of leather on the sandpaper because that can mould to the shape. So just he's starting to come up pretty good. A few little blemishes, where little cuts and stuff from where I probably, with the spoke shave, gone a little bit heavy against the grain. But they'll scrape out those, and once the sandpaper goes over it, you can see these marks a little bit more. A few little tap marks from the they're from scraper, but it's starting to come up pretty good. I'm going to show you here, I've got in my hand a template, profile template, which is adjustable. These needles just push in and out and will make it curve. So if I hold it on there, on the handle there, and then turn the handle over, you see that I've got it pretty close. But it's just a little bit rocky on one point, so it's got a little bit of a high point there as opposed to there, so not bad by eye. So I'm just going to see, it's just a little bit there, so I'll just put a little mark where I want to take a bit off, and then I'll just take a little bit off more. I just like it to be symmetrical. And so I go down the bottom, you just press the needles through. It's a bit stiff at the moment, this one. Okay, so I just want the bottom part of the profile here. And so I flip that over. And again, it's probably needs, oops, I'll start again. So you can see I've got it on that side there. I'll flip that over there, and it just indicates to me that maybe a bit up the top where my thumb is needs just a little bit more to balance that curve. Seems to be a little bit slightly different there. So we'll just put a little bit of a mark there as well, so we can concentrate on those areas just to even it up and get it nice and symmetrical. Okay, so probably about 95% finished the handle now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the handle down. What that does is it's going to raise the grain up, and then I'll sand that off again. That means I'll get a much better finish, and it'll be pretty good, but it feels really nice in the hand. And it'll be, I've replaced the proof mark there because the one on the end is almost gone. And so I think it's going to come up really well. But we'll just give it a little wipe down and raise the grain up. So I'll do that in a second. Hot water works better than cold water. Just give it a little, be a bit generous with it. It's going to give us an idea of what it's going to look like when it's been finished. We don't need to do it. Oh, we can put a bit there. Right. So I can already see the grain raising up a little bit on the end. So you can see a little spot there of the blue sponge. That's where the grain has actually already risen and soaked it with sandpaper. So I'll let that dry. We'll sand that off again. We might do that a couple of times. Improves the finish no end. Okay, so we've pretty much finished it now. I'll just give it a coat. You can see here I narrowed up the throat of that a little bit more to give it a little bit more shape. So we compared it to my dad's hammer, and it was a little bit narrow there, so I thought I'll just shape that up a bit more. And so I'll give that a nice coat now. It's nice and smooth. We finished it with about 300 or 400 sandpaper, and I'll just cut the wedges in that. I'll do a little video on that, and then put it all together and we're done. Jack's hammerhead, made 70 odd years ago, has now got a new handle. Okay, so we've got the handle there. I've given it a couple of coats of clear lacquer. It's come up pretty nice. Now you'll see here I've drawn in these two yellow lines, slightly tapered. I'm going to cut along those. I'll just enlarge the cut a little bit on the to allow for a wedge to go in there. But firstly, what I'm going to do is drill a hole there and there so it doesn't try to split any further. Okay, so I've drilled the holes. I've drilled them one above the other so I don't create a weak point across there. So now I'll cut down there, make some wedges, and we'll put it all together. Okay, so we've got our slots cut and our holes drilled, and I've got a couple of wedges here. I've just gone for a hardwood contrasting colour just because it looks good when it's finished. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll put the hammerhead on, and get it down nice and tight. And now get a little bit of glue and we'll squeeze that into the slots there. It's good to try and get as much in as you can. Oh. Okay, put that there for a sec. And you've got to work reasonably fast now. Get that in and just hit the two wedges down at the same time. And what that's doing, it's closing this up here. that's working pretty good. So you can see there that it's widened up. So now I'll just let that glue dry off. I'll cut those and then I'll just peen that over, and we've done the job. Okay, I've cut it off, and I'm just going to use a ball peen hammer and just the idea of this is just to flare any of the remaining timber into the wider opening, and just to fill it all up. So we'll sand it off and then it'll be finished. So there we have it. I'm just giving it a little trim with the chisel and then a sandpaper, and now just with a nice fine finish. There we go, there's our old hammer on a new handle. I think Jack will be pretty happy.